Hey, how you doing? Welcome back to the channel. Good to have you here as always. So tonight, I am taking another look back into Christchurch's dark past, taking a look at one of the events of skinhead perpetrated violence, the first of many high-profile violent attacks and murders in the city. So in the early hours of Wednesday, October the 4th, 1989, a Ford Consul car was seen driving erratically along Colombo Street and then onto Manchester Street, heading towards the city. The vehicle stopped around Manchester and Worcester Corner and it let a passenger out. Now that passenger was carrying a pump-action shotgun, and to which he started firing into buildings. And it seemed that he was purposefully firing into buildings. It wasn't just random. Man was also yelling and screaming and seemed to be very enraged as he was walking along the street towards the square. When he approached the square, the only person present at the time was a council worker, Wayne Richard Motts, aged 22, who was cleaning the pavers in the square. He was water blasting them. He was approached by the gunman, and the gunman opened fire on him, killing him. The gunman then turned and walked 80 meters across the square to where the police kiosk was stationed at the time, and he sat down. He was then surrounded by police who had been called, and they ordered him to put the weapon down. The gunman then turned the weapon on himself and pulled the trigger, effectively ending his own life. So in the spate of less than 15 minutes, Christchurch had seen its first random act of violence perpetrated by a skinhead. Now, Christchurch had, of course, seen acts of skinhead violence leading up to this, but it wasn't to this level. There were fights on the street. Asian kids were being attacked. There was a couple of stabbings, sure, but nothing like this. Nothing so random, nothing that took an innocent life, that's for sure. So that night, the night of the 4th of October, I was actually in town, hanging out at the Regal Lounge, which was normal for me. I spent a lot of my teen years in that place because my mother was the manager. Now, I was unaware of the shooting, especially at the time. We didn't hear anything up there. We were too far away. But then one of our regular taxi drivers came in, and he was actually there. He was one of the witnesses to all of this, and he was really visibly shaken. So he told us what he had seen. He'd seen a skinhead, and he said it was a skinhead marching up the street, firing at buildings, and he said he'd seen him shoot himself. But then when the news came out later that day, and it was discovered that he had actually shot the council worker on this rampage, it's saddened us and it sickened us. You know, this was a level of violence we hadn't seen at all. So why? Why did this happen? Who did this? Who was the gunman? The gunman was a well-known skinhead, Glenn McAllister. Glenn and his brother Craig were well-known skinheads in the Christchurch scene. They were part of United Skins, and him and his brother Craig were part of this new movement of young, violent skinheads that Christchurch hadn't really seen before. We had seen skinhead violence, but usually it was the old boot boys punching on every now and again, that kind of stuff. This new breed of skinhead were the ultra-violent ones. They were the ones who were going out, attacking minorities and pretty much anyone else they saw as a threat to the white race. And Glenn and Craig had become very well known in the movement. Glenn especially was no stranger to violence. He had been released 10 days prior to this incident taking place. He was released from prison where he was serving 2.5 years for the stabbing of a fellow skinhead, Bobby Gardner. Now, he didn't serve his full term and he was released. 10 days later, he went out and shot Wayne Motts. So why did he do it? Why did he carry out this horrible act of violence? Well, no one actually knows, but there is a lot of speculation as to why he did this. There was speculation that he was actually targeting a police officer who was stationed at the police kiosk. The police officer was actually interviewed much later on, and he believed that he was actually the target. But then some say that Glenn was actually enraged because another skinhead had actually committed suicide the day before whilst he was in the police cells. Now, it wasn't known whether Glenn actually knew the skinhead, if they were closely related. That we don't know. But some say that he did know him and that he was enraged by this. There was also speculation that he could have been under the influence of drugs. Many of them were at the time. It was well known that a lot of them took speed and acid, but I don't believe there was an autopsy, so unfortunately we don't know what that was an attributing factor to what caused him to do this. Probably the only person who would ever really know would be his brother Craig. Craig was actually driving the car, so Craig was actually the last person to see his brother alive and talk to him, so he would actually know what Glenn's motivation was, I'm sure, but he's never going to talk about it. Glenn did actually do an interview with Paul Holmes shortly after this. Now, the interview isn't available online. I have actually put in a request for that video. I was hoping to have it before this video is released, but I will share that once I get a copy of it. So there may have been many factors in what drove Glenn to do this. None of us will ever really know for sure. But what we do know is that act of violence soon started off a chain of events that saw many other people being attacked and other people losing their lives as well. Over the next 10-15 years, Christchurch saw a lot of skinhead violence. Christchurch and the West Coast, especially with members of Fourth Reich committing acts of murder. And it was a really, really dark time in Christchurch. Everyone was afraid of everyone with a shaved head, because there were many skinheads running around, and these acts of violence were actually emboldening them. It was really empowering them, like, yeah, you know, these guys are the true soldiers of our cause, and, you know, all that kind of rhetoric. Thankfully, it didn't last. They didn't stand the test of time, and many of these guys who were involved in these movements have moved away. They've completely changed their lives. They definitely don't want to talk about that part of their lives. Many of them are ashamed of it, or just don't remember, or don't want to remember, because it was really a dark time in Christchurch's past, and it's one that we never want to see repeated, that's for sure. So that's a little look back into one of the incidents that shaped Christchurch's skinhead violence. Now, I will be doing more videos about these incidents coming up. Want to record a lot of these incidents, a lot about the skinhead movements in New Zealand, just because I think it needs to be recorded. There needs to be a record of this, just so we don't repeat the past. Thank you so much for tuning in. I really appreciate you being here. And hey, if you want to keep watching and keep supporting me, many different ways you can do it, of course. All the links are in the description below. Best way is just to give this video a big like, subscribe down below, and hit the little bell to get notified, and you'll be seeing new videos from me every week. Thanks so much. I'll see you next week for another awesome video. Stay safe, peace out, and love and light to you.